Hare Krishna. Welcome to the daily morning Srimad Bhagavatam class at Sri Srinatha Kalachanjidam. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Okay, please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You can chant the prayers together. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadev, the author. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuron Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Okay. We're continuing with our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 4 and we're beginning chapter 2 today. And the title of the chapter is Daksha curses Lord Shiva. We'll do text 1 through 19 and text 19 is our verse for focus today. Okay. Before, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to start doing the verses.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to tell a story before we started reading the class today. This is something that happened in ISKCON of Italy. If you've already heard this story, keep it to yourself. ISKCON of Italy, in one of the temples in Italy. So there was this temple president in that temple, and then he was coming from a very rich background. And then he had his daughter, and then he had many devotees in his temple, but especially one was a great Sankirtan devotee who would go all day, book distribution outside and things like that. He was a very nice devotee. So one day, this Sankirtan devotee has gone out all day to distribute the books, and then he's come into the temple, and then sitting in front of the deities, all sweat and it's dirty, but he's sitting in front of the deities and taking darshan of the deities. And the temple president walks into the temple hall. But then this devotee, Sankirtan devotee, being so absorbed in the deity, didn't really see the temple president. And then on top of this temple president's daughter, he was very rich, was married to this person who was not so rich and it's dirty, and he didn't really like him. And then this increased his frustration. He's coming inside and this guy didn't even notice him. So then in the Sunday feast, what this temple president did was started saying really horrible things about the Sankirtan devotee in front of all the devotees assembled. And then this was really, really hurtful to the daughter, and she got a can of gasoline, poured on herself in the Sunday feast, and immolated herself. This is not a real story. But this is exactly the story of Daksha and Sati that we're going to read in a modern context. Srila Prabhupada says, every single psychological phenomenon that you can see in this world is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can still take the concepts of Bhagavatam and put it in modern context, put it in our lives, and then clearly take advantage of what the Bhagavatam has to offer us. But this is my spiritual master, Hanumat Preshik Swami, tells the story much better than me. But so now that you have the idea of what we're going to read, we'll start with text 1.
1 through 19?
Yeah.
Vidura inquired, why was Daksha, who was so affectionate towards his daughter, envious of Lord Shiva, who is the best among the gentle? Why did he neglect his daughter Sati, Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the entire world, is free from enmity, is a peaceful personality, and is always satisfied in himself. He is the greatest among the demigods. How is it possible that Daksha could be inimical towards such an auspicious personality?
This question arises at the end of the previous chapter. We have the entire genealogy, and then the last few verses talk about Sati, one of the daughters of Daksha. This is the 16th daughter of Daksha, and then she was the most favorite daughter of Daksha also. So then this question arises that why didn't she have a child? She was so young, but she died before having a child. So that's the context of how this question starts.
Text 3. My dear Maitreya, to part with one's life is very difficult. Would you kindly explain to me how such a son-in-law and father-in-law could quarrel so bitterly that the great goddess Sati gave up her life?
The sage Maitreya said, in a former time the leaders of the universal creation performed a great sacrifice in which all the great sages, philosophers, demigods, and fire gods assembled with their followers.
When Daksha, the leader of the Prajapatis, entered that assembly, his personal bodily luster, as bright as the effulgence of the sun, the entire assembly was illuminated, and all the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence.
You can read like 2 verses at a time because we're going to read.
Influenced by his personal bodily luster, all the fire gods and other participants in that great assembly, with the exceptions of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, gave up their own sitting places and stood in respect for Daksha. Daksha was adequately welcomed by the president of the great assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha, by the order of Brahma, properly took his seat.
Before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect. At that time, Daksha became greatly angry, and his eyes glowing, he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy.
Shiva has exploited the name and fame of the governors of the universe and has polluted the path of gentle manners because he is shameless. He doesn't know how to act. He has already accepted himself as my subordinate by marrying my daughter in the presence of fire and Brahmins. He has married my He has married my daughter, who is equal to Gayatri, and has pretended to be just like an honest person.
He has eyes like a monkey's, yet he has married my daughter, whose eyes are just like those of a deer cub. Nevertheless, he did not stand up to receive me, nor did he think it fit to welcome me with sweet words. I had no desire to give my daughter to this person, who has broken all rules of civility. Because of not observing the required rules and regulations, he is impure. But I have obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the message of the Vedas to a Shudra.
He lives in a filthy place like crematoriums, and his companions are the ghosts and demons. Naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying. He smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He does not bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Therefore, only in name is he Shiva, or auspicious. Actually, he is the most mad and inauspicious creature. Thus, he is very dear to crazy beings in the gross mode of ignorance, and he is their leader. On the request of Lord Brahma, I handed over my chaste daughter to him, although he is devoid of all cleanliness, and his heart is filled with nasty things.
Who is Brahma to Daksha? His father. Yeah.
Text 17. The sage Maitreya continued, thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, washed his hands and mouths and cursed him in the following words. 18. The demigods are eligible to share in the oblation of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all the demigods, should not have a share.
Yeah, so text 19, we'll read the Sanskrit. So this is Daksha. He got so angry at Lord Shiva because in the assembly when he entered, Lord Shiva didn't stand up. Because Lord Shiva was his son-in-law, and the son-in-law is expected according to etiquette to stand up to somebody who is the father-in-law. The only person who was exempt there was Lord Brahma, because he was the father of Daksha. Everybody else, the Bhagavatam says, were standing up when Daksha entered the assembly. But just as he was going to sit, he noticed Lord Shiva didn't really stand up to him, for him. So then he curses Lord Shiva that when you do a fire sacrifice, all the demigods get a share of it. So he said, now Lord Shiva, although he is a demigod, will not get a share of it. So we'll see, Prabhupada has a very nice purport to that verse also, and he comments Vishwanath Chakravarti. But we'll go to text 19, which is a really nice verse also. We'll do the Sanskrit and then we'll discuss a little. Nishidyamana sasadasya mukher Daksho giritraya visrijya shapam Tasmad vinishkramya vivritta manyur Jagama kauravya nijam niketanam Nishidyamana sasadhasya mukher Daksho giritraya vishrujya shapam Tasmad vinishkramya vivriddha manyur Jagama kauravya nijam niketanam Nishidyamana sasadhasya mukher Daksho giritraya vishrujya shapam Tasmad vinishkramya vivriddha manyur Jagama kauravya nijam niketanam. Please chant. Nishidyamana sasadhasya mukhya Daksho giritraya vishrujya shapam Tasmad vinishkramya vivriddha manyur Jaghama kauravya nijam niketanam Vishrid sasadhasya mukhya Daksho giritraya vishrujya shapam Tasmad vinishkramya vivriddha manyur Jagam kauravya nijam niketanam. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is the word for word translation. Nishidyamana, being requested not to. Saha, he, Daksha. Sadasya Mukhai, by the members of the sacrifice. Daksha, Daksha. Giritraya, to Shiva. Visrijya, giving. Shapam, a curse. Tasmat, from that place. Vinishkramya, going out. Vivriddhamanyu, being exceedingly angry. Jagama, went. Kauravya, O Vidura. Nijam, to his own. Niketanam, home. Translation. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, in spite of the requests of all members of the sacrificial assembly, Daksha, in great anger, cursed Lord Shiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home. Please repeat. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, in spite of the requests of all the members of the sacrificial assembly, Daksha, in great anger, cursed Lord Shiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home. Purport. Anger is so detrimental that even a great personality like Daksha, out of anger, left the arena where Brahma was presiding, and all the great sages and pious and saintly persons were assembled. All of them requested him not to leave, but infuriated, he left, thinking that the auspicious place was not fit for him. Puffed up by his exalted position, he thought that no one was greater than he in argument. It appears that all the members of the assembly, including Lord Brahma, requested him not to be angry and leave their company. But in spite of all these requests, he left. That is the effect of cruel anger. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is advised that one who desires to make tangible advancement in spiritual consciousness must avoid three things: lust, anger, and the mode of passion. Actually, we can see that lust, anger, and passion make a man crazy, even though he can be as great as Daksha. The very name Daksha suggests that he was expert in all material activities. But still, because of his aversion towards such a saintly personality as Shiva, he was attacked by these three enemies: anger, lust, and passion. Lord Chaitanya therefore advised that one be very careful not to offend Vaishnavas. He compared offenses toward a Vaishnava to a mad elephant. As a mad elephant can do anything horrible, so when a person offends a Vaishnava, he can perform any abominable action. Yeah. So Daksha was so angry at Shiva, and you could see the language that he was using when describing Shiva. Very horrible. And this was such a great personality. This was one of the Prajapatis, right? Daksha was not an ordinary person. It says when he entered the assembly of the sacrificial, where the sacrifice was going to take place, his bodily effulgence was so bright that everybody was looking at him. Like just when he entered, something was glowing in the room. That's how exalted he was. And yet, you can see what anger can do to a person, even as great as Daksha. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Rupa Goswami starts off his nectar of instruction with 6 pushes or 6 urges, right? Vacho Vegam and Manasa Krodha Vegam. This is something that Rupa Goswami is advising all the devotees that we should control. This is the urge of the mind and anger, Manasa and Krodha. He puts it together. But this Krodha is very, very hard to control. Many qualities can be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. Even anger can, to a point, if you're really expert, can be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. But it's very, very hard to do it. When we get angry, usually it's not for the welfare of others. You could see that Prabhupada would get really angry at his disciples. But the disciples would even cry. But then when they think back, they would be overjoyed that, oh, Prabhupada chastised me. Because Prabhupada didn't really have anything for himself that he wanted when he was chastising his disciples. But most of the time, when we get angry, it is because we want something. That is mostly the reason why we get angry. And here, Daksha wanted something. What did he want? He wanted respect. He wanted respect from the person that he really didn't like. This was Daksha's problem. He really didn't like Shiva. So he just couldn't let that go also, right? If you didn't really like a person, just let it be. But no, he couldn't let that be also. He said, oh, I really don't like this person. On top of this, this person is not respecting me. And then he got really angry, right? And Krishna gives this very nice sequence in the Gita on how you get angry. Does anybody know this? This is a scientific sequence. Yeah. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Krodho Vijayate Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Sammohat Smriti Vibrama Smriti Brimshat Buddhinasho Buddhinashat Pranashyati. Krishna gives this incredible cycle of why we get angry. So, first, initially, what happens is we start contemplating our senses on the object of the senses. Dhyayate Vishayan Pumsa. So slowly what happens is that this contemplation becomes attachment. So when you're constantly contemplating on something, you get attached to it, Krishna says. After being attached, if you continue contemplating on that object, then it develops into something called lust. So what is lust? Yeah, it's actually an intense desire to enjoy something selfishly. Not just that intense desire, but when it comes to a point of lust, you just cannot stop yourself from getting it. You really need it. You want it. That's the point of lust. But Krishna says, lust always turns into anger. Sangat sanjayate kama, Kama, this lust, krodho bijayate. It turns into anger. Any thoughts on why it might turn into anger? Yes? Frustrated desires. Yeah. You want something so bad, but you're not able to get it. So it naturally results in frustration, and therefore you're angry about it. Trisha, and then you? He was raising his hand.
Desires are endless.
Yeah, desires are endless.
Get it. You want something more.
Yeah, your desires our desires are so endless that we really get what we want, right? We are so fixed on getting it. We get something, but then it really doesn't satisfy us because our desires are so endless. Then, because we thought so much about something, and then we got it, but it was really not something that I built up in my mind. It's not meeting my expectations, So therefore, we get frustrated and angry. Why else would you get angry? You Rachel, could say the same thing. I'll give you the third scenario, right? We discussed two scenarios. One is you really want something, you don't get it. It's the obvious. You get angry and frustrated. Okay, you really want something, you get it, but then it doesn't match your expectations, so you get angry and frustrated. The third combination that you can do is you really want something and you get it, and it satisfies you. You really like it. It's according to your expectations. But still, Krishna says you will get angry. Why? Yeah, it is temporary. You lose it. That's the nature of things in this world, is that you will be separated from it or it will be separated from you. Either way, it's going to be taken away from you, right? So this is the nature of material desires, is that it can never satisfy us. And krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhrama. That when we get angry, this is what happens. We're completely deluded. And when we're deluded, we lose our intelligence. And when we lose our intelligence, we act in ways that Daksha is acting. He's completely not thinking about the situation. So he was wanting etiquette, right? I am entering the assembly. Shiva is my son-in-law and he didn't stand up. But now, when Daksha is leaving, his father, Brahma, is saying, Daksha, please don't leave. We want you to stay. And all the sages there assembled are saying, please don't leave. And then this anger, he's consumed so much by anger that he forgets his own argument. That his own argument was that Shiva is my son-in-law, he didn't stand up and he's not behaving according to proper etiquette. But this consummation of anger is so much by Daksha that he himself forgets this. That, my father is asking, right? And in fact, he's so angry that he's complaining about his father in the previous verse, right? I never wanted to marry my daughter to Shiva, but my father asked me to do it. Lord Brahma asked me to do it. He says that, right? That's why I married my daughter to Shiva. So he forgets this. So this anger is incredibly dangerous to a devotee. And Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Bhagavad Gita in his purport about the 3 gates to hell that Krishna says, right? Lust, anger, and greed. But Prabhupada mentions the mode of passion in the purport. Greed stands on the mode of passion, basically, right? So lust, anger, and greed can open up our gates to hell. And especially when we are angry, we have no control over ourselves. Therefore, we behave in really ways that we don't want to behave in. And especially when we are angry or when we lose our intelligence and behave in ways that are not proper with a Vaishnava or a devotee of the Lord, then that is the most detrimental thing that can happen to us. Right? Being angry in itself is horrible. But when you're angry and when you show that on a devotee, then that's it. Prabhupada is quoting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying this Vaishnava aparadh or the offense to a Vaishnava is like a mad elephant, right? Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu says, Brahmande Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beej. All of us have been wandering in multiple universes. Brahmande Brahmite Kon. Not just this planet, but multiple universes, right? But one such a soul becomes fortunate, Bhagyavan Jeev. And who is that fortunate soul? Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beej. By the mercy of Guru and Krishna, we get the seed of bhakti. And the seed of bhakti, is that an apple tree? Or a mango tree? How is the seed of bhakti described? What does it grow into? It's a creeper. It's very tender, right? It's really tender. It has to hold on to something. You see a creeper? It has to hold on to something for it to grow. And what we have to hold on to is the Sangha of Vaishnavas for us to grow in bhakti, for us to progress in bhakti. But this creeper of bhakti is very tender, right? And you know what happens when a mad elephant enters a field? It can completely destroy even big trees, right? It just uproots trees very easily. And there is this tender creeper of bhakti also in that garden. It can easily run over it, right? And completely destroy this field. So that's why this offense towards a Vaishnava is considered a mad elephant. It can completely destroy our bhakti. And you will see what will happen to Daksha as a result of this. He was in such a great position of that of a Prajapati. He was expected to lead his progeny by example. And instead he was consumed so much by this quality of anger that he was going to get a goat's head. And you can see this cursing and counter cursing that ensues as a result. So Daksha curses, and then we'll see the counter curses that Daksha gets and all these things like that. And then the behavior of a Vaishnava. So amidst all of this, Lord Shiva is patiently sitting there, absolutely very disappointed actually with his followers of how they are behaving. We'll see. But in the future we'll also see the reaction of a Vaishnava to such a circumstance, and how a Vaishnava in a particular circumstance such as this horrible circumstance behaves. Right? So this is Vaishnava Prad. We can say so many things about Vaishnava Prad. One is when we are committing Vaishnava Prad, which is basically the case in Daksha's situation, is that it's a horrible thing. That is very clear. And Rupa Goswami in his Nectar of Devotion says what we should do when we are in a place where devotees are blasphemed. Does anybody know what Rupa Goswami's prescription are? Yes.
I don't know Rupa Goswami, but I remember reading in the purport that there are 4 things. You cut out their tongue.
Oh, you cut out the tongue of a person who blasphemes. Yes, that's one. Kill yourself and give up your own body. You know why? You're implicit. Okay. Okay, that's one way to think about it. What else? Why else would we leave our body?
Because it's hurting our spiritual life.
It's hurting us so much that we love this Vaishnava so much that we cannot bear to hear the Vaishnava being blasphemed, that we cannot hold on to our lives. That's a very exalted situation. This is not suicide, right? You're not just jumping off a hill. But the emotion of this Vaishnava being criticized is so strong in your heart that you just cannot tolerate it. And the third one? Leave the place, Rupa Goswami says. You just leave the place. You don't be in a place where devotees are being blasphemed. So this is 2 sides of the coin of when we blaspheme or devotees are being blasphemed. So 8:15, I think I should... 3 Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Devotion. Yeah. It could be. I might be wrong. Yeah. Okay, so if there are any reflections, questions or comments, we can take it. Yes, Prabhu. Can we pass a mic? The devotees listening online, that's why.
Because some people might be new here, and we don't want to see anybody go to prison. You might want to maybe have a mature conclusion to these 3 options for how devotees handle things.
So the best thing would be to leave the place. Don't cut off the other person's tongue. We really don't want to do it. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to say that, but I forgot. But please don't cut people's tongues. You can leave the assembly when devotees are being blasphemed. Correct. Exactly. Just run. Because it can destroy our bhakti, right? It's very, very detrimental to us if we participate in such a situation. Just run. Just run.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Aprameya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can you suggest some practical ways to control lust, anger and greed?
So if you see the cycle that Krishna is saying, it is the point of contemplation. When we are contemplating our senses on the object of the senses, our intelligence is still there. We are not deluded by the intelligence. So at that point we should cut it off. Okay, it goes into attachment. It's still possible for us to cut it off. But at the point of lust, it's impossible. At the point of lust, we are so consumed by it that it's impossible for us to retreat back from that situation. So the ideal point for us to back off from our desires, if they are really not proper for us, is at the point of contemplation. Beyond that, it is very, very hard. And this is one of the things that Rupa Goswami says also that destroys bhakti, right? Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha laulyamcha shadbir bhaktir vinashiti. That greed, this intense greed is something that can completely destroy our bhakti. So we have to try to be satisfied with what we have, right? That's basically what can stop us from greed. Greed is, you can look at not just ordinary people, right? You look at these billionaires. You earn your first million, you want the next million, and then the next 100 million, then the billion, then the next trillion. That's basically how we go. Then you want to own the planet, something like that. Yes, Vijay Prabhu.
Just to comment that actually it's not impossible to give up lust when it gets to that point. And Prabhupada gives the example of Bilvamangala Thakur, who he was on a pilgrimage to Vrindavan. He became attracted to a lady to the point where he followed her back to her home.
Yeah.
And he expressed that he wanted to be with her. And she said that to her husband, and he said, well, he's a Brahmin, all right. And then he took her hairpin and plucked out his eyes. So he had succumbed to lust so much that he's following around, but then he gave it up.
Correct.
And he became the great Bilvamangala. So it is possible to give up lust even when he gets to that point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It is definitely possible, but in most situations, we're so consumed by it that it's very hard for us to get out of it. And especially with Bilvamangal Thakur, he had gone through it a few times, right? And then you have these impressions, say, why am I doing this again? Right? If we really try for it, Krishna helps. He really wanted to get over it, but his modes were so strong that he was still succumbing to it. But you see here Krishna is helping. He's from Dadami Buddhi Yogamtam, right? He's from within giving him intelligence and saying, really don't want to do it. And he gets so frustrated with himself at that point that he plucks his eyes out, right? But yeah, it is definitely possible. But for most people, in general terms, when you get to the point of lust, it's like, I really need it, right? That's the point of lust. I cannot live without it. I really need to have it. So at that point, it's very hard to get out of it. Yeah, but it is possible. Yeah. We had somebody here.
Krishna, it has to do this. I was thinking it was nice, this understanding of the pathway to hell, to falling down, because I was thinking that, after these experiences, when we're maybe a little bit more sober, we can reverse engineer.
Yeah.
Like, where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
Where did I start to become angry? And then we can say, oh, what was that thing that I was contemplating? And then we can try to work on that thing. I remember hearing in Nectar of Instruction, I'm pretty positive that Srila Prabhupada said, frustration comes from material desires.
Yeah.
And so I could, right when I heard that, I was like, okay, if I start to get frustrated, I can sit back and go, what is my, what do I want materially here? What am I trying to, be greedy for?
Yeah.
And it could help me to readjust and think about how I could either give it up or try to turn it into a spiritual desire.
Yeah. And on this thing at least it's easier for us to identify something that's gross, right? Oh, I really want a big home, but then we can say, oh, that's really not needed for me. I don't need to spend $1 million. On gross things, it's easy, but in this case, we're seeing Daksha on something that's very subtle, like labh, man, and pratishtha, profit, adoration, and prestige. That is very, very hard. That's where most adults get into problems with, right? The kids fight for toys. Adults fight when their false ego clashes. That's basically what the situation here is, right? To identify these subtle things takes a while. Oh, this is some quality that when being poked, I get really frustrated and angry. Krishna gives us that situation. Yes, Drishta.
I was wondering, when we talk about like running away from the place or leaving the place, I was wondering, like, it seems like, if someone's blaspheming another devotee, or there's like a fight happening, or, they're like just yelling at this devotee, it would kind of be maybe irresponsible to just be like, okay, peace, you like just like head out, and this person's like getting totally like grilled by the other devotee. Although I guess I'm thinking maybe you run away in situations like, oh, there's gossip happening, or oh, there's like something mundane or something like that. Maybe if you have an idea.
Yeah, it is all based on the circumstance and context, right? If you really have a responsibility where you have to step in, you definitely have to step in. But if that's not your place to step in, you basically run away. It depends on our strength also, on how much we can withstand such a situation. If you will be influenced by it, you better run away from it. That's the idea. Kaylee had a...
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for class and all of the comments. I really appreciate. Especially like Nanda Braja's comment about taking this time for reflection, trying to understand where does this desire come from.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about lust, I was thinking also sometimes we may not get to that point where we can stop and reflect, but I don't always agree with this dovetailing, but I find that it does really help, because some things, like maybe we want some sugar or something like that, and so just dovetail it into taking some prasad or making prasad or taking fruit, something like that will be different. So, and then someone just said something. Oh, but I am curious about how to do this kind of dovetailing aspect for things that are more subtle, like adoration or pride, prestige. I think these things that you said, how is it possible to like dovetail those things until we can come to the point of reflection, trying to understand where is this coming from? What is this need that needs to be met? Like, why do I feel that way?
Yeah, actually it's very hard. This is the reason why we're here, is that we wanted to be masters and controllers, isn't it? The reason for our very existence in this material world is that we wanted to be gods. We wanted all the adoration that Krishna had. We wanted all the prestige that Krishna had. But when you come in the society of devotees, right, this is why you have practical examples are so powerful, in the sense that when you see somebody who, in spite of, who could claim all these profit, adoration, doesn't really want it. This is when you can see that all these things don't really make us happy. Ultimately, right? Why do we think we need profit, adoration, and prestige? Is that we think that will give us a sense of happiness, right? Ultimately, everything that we do, the underlying factor is so that we can feel happy about it. That's the underlying factor. But over time, we see that really is not making us happy, because the reality of this world is that you cannot expect everybody to adore you. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to control something that's uncontrollable, you'll always be frustrated, right? You come into this realization. That's kind of how I feel. But of course, this is some need is there for recognition. So initially, in the initial stages at least, So it's nice to encourage and recognize devotees for their services and things like that, so that it doesn't like completely put them off. But then over time, when we are maturing, we see that we don't really need that for us to serve Krishna. That is it. Yes, Vijay Prabhu.
You could dovetail it by trying to make Krishna famous. People can adore Krishna. And yeah, Prabhupada, he wanted everybody to hear about Krishna.
Yes.
And he wanted Krishna to be famous.
Yes.
He never wanted to be famous.
Correct.
And so yeah, try to make Krishna famous. And the best way, or one of the best ways, actually Prabhupada said the best way, is book distribution.
Yes.
Make Krishna famous. So people can adore, understand, people can understand.
Yeah.
Krishna, people don't know anything about God practically. I was at a campus not long ago, and these Christians were trying to convert me. A young boy and girl, and the girl said, "So tell us something that you have that's better than what we have in the Bible." So I said, "All right, the beauty of God." And she said, "Well, we understand the beauty of God. God has blazing fire coming from His eyes." I said, "Well, that's not beautiful. That's spooky. That's horrible." This is their concept of the beauty of God, blazing fire, and it's actually in the Bible. I looked it up. It's in the Bible. Blazing fire.
That describes God's beauty.
So what do we say about God's eyes?
Lotus eyes.
Like lotus eyes, beautiful. Yeah. Krishna is the most beautiful. So we want Krishna to be famous.
Yeah, and when you're saying this, I also remember Prabhupada saying that when we have these mentality to enjoy and decorate ourselves, he says when we worship the deity, that mentality goes away. He says specifically about if we really want to wear nice clothes and decorate ourselves, Prabhupada says if we decorate the deity, that's the perfect way to dovetail that particular mentality. Because when we do that to Krishna, then he says that it's like us, when we try to decorate ourselves, Prabhupada says it's like decorating the reflection on the mirror. But when we decorate Krishna, it's like decorating the main person, and then when we see that, the reflection is automatically decorated. We automatically get that satisfaction when we dress the deity like that, right? So this is Krishna consciousness, is that we're not saying don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. This is not a process of negation. This is a process of positive attachment. In fact, this word laulyam that Rupa Goswami uses negative in Nectar of Instruction is used positively in the Nectar of Devotion. He says we need to have this intense greed to serve Krishna. Even that greed, we can dovetail it in ways that can actually be very beneficial to us. If we have this tendency to be greedy, be very greedy to serve Krishna. That will actually invoke true love of Godhead. This is a very essential quality, Rupa Goswami says, is required in a devotee for us to progress in devotional services, this intense greed to serve Krishna. And depending on the different qualities we have so many ways in which we can serve Krishna. And you have to definitely have a mentor, because this is each of us have very specific things that we have to work on, and you need somebody who knows you, who can actually help you dovetail that quality in Krishna's service. So that's why it's very important for us to have spiritual masters. Yes,
so one thing to help us from making mad elephant offenses and so forth, I learned from Savas Prabhu, who is known to be an incredible temple president, and he said, when you feel like typing that email, that's gonna, or you feel like you're just gonna lose it on somebody, like really. He says, just wait. I forgot the number of hours, roughly 48 hours. I can't remember. I'm putting in my mind 2 days. Yeah. I can't remember that. But just waiting 2 days. Just hold out. Just wait 2 days. It can wait 2 days, right? And then 2 days, about a day later, you're going, what was I thinking? My God, what happens if I would have said that or wrote that?
Yeah.
Saves us from so much trouble. That's helped me so many times.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that.
Thank
And
you.
if I could just mention one other thing,
Yes.
you know, yesterday's class I had the duty, the acronym, and I didn't know what the T was. So we got desire to liberate everybody. You unqualified. T, use me as a tool, puppet. You know, a tool to an instrument.
Yes.
To do your work, Krishna, and then why full faith in your holy name. Sorry about that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ro. It really helps to take your time and pause. I've typed furiously emails like that, and then it's like, okay, before you hit the send button, I really don't want to do it. And then after 2 days, I've recognized, what have I written? You know, like,
oh no,
it really didn't need that amount of escalation. You know, it's like whatever we're typing, it was something small, and then in our mind we blow it up so much. Yes, Mataji.
Just to kind of go along Parameshwar's Prabhu's train of thought, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, he used to say that, yes, being around the temple is like a scrub, like a washcloth. You're getting scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. I mean, because we're becoming dear to Krishna. And to go back, we need purification.
Yeah.
Right? It's a shower, past the soap. Anyway, so he said that that's what it's like around the temple. But when you go on Sankirtan, it's a Brillo pad. And it really gets the gunk out. You know, like whatever you're like, anarthas are stopping your progress.
Yes. Yes, thank you. The opposite quality of what Daksha is having, he's really proud of his position, right, is humility. And you can easily get a grasp of it when you go and distribute a book outside. When nobody knows you, and yet you think so highly of yourself, and people start looking up, you know, you can really get a dose of humility when you go out and distribute books. And it's like everybody should go out and try to hand over one book at least to somebody. It really gives you this, what do you call, a dose of reality. Oh, very few people in a close circle actually know you. Like people outside really don't know who you are and thinking so highly of yourself. And then when you go and give a book, they're looking at you as if you're a crazy person. It's like, why are you doing this? You know? Then it's the balloon is bursted. You know. Thank you for bringing that up.
One tiny thing, I actually was the recipient of some furious anger from a Vaishnava yesterday. Furious, like fire coming from the eyes. And I thought, no, I'm going to respond. And all day I kept saying, I'm going to respond. Well, yeah, what are you going to do? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And I just kept chanting, and I thought, no, I'm going to respond. I'm going to respond. No, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I just kept chanting and chanting, and now I'm like, I have no response.
Yeah.
Just thank you for the mercy.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Abhay, you had something?
Sorry for extending it more.
I think we're at time. We're at like 35.
So when we're dealing with Vaishnavas, especially when you're at temple or we're in daily life, I mean, we're surrounded by Vaishnavas, and so it's very difficult to keep track of the unconscious and conscious offenses we're making, especially when we start to treat like everybody's informal, like we're trying to build those relationships. So post things happening like that, maybe on a daily basis, how do we deal with the offenses we have committed, maybe in a day or a week or whatever?
Yeah, when you realize it, you go and ask for forgiveness from the Vaishnava. Just go and ask for forgiveness from the Vaishnava.
What about the unconscious ones, the ones that you didn't realize you were committing?
We try to be conscious. And one thing that we have to always remember is this point of respect for Vaishnavas should never get out of our mind, because familiarity can breed contempt, right? When we are in a society of devotees, when we get to know each other very closely, then we take each other very lightly. But we have to recognize that every single Vaishnava, irrespective of which Kanishta, Madhyama or Uttama Adhikari, they're still devotees of the Lord. And Rupa Goswami says we really have to respect each and every person. So we have to cultivate this consciousness that we're very fortunate, we are in the society of devotees, and we have to respect each and every one of them. This is something that we have to cultivate. This is a cultural thing, right? In a society of Vaishnavas, how do we behave is such a big topic. But for ourselves at least, there are different ways to respect a Vaishnava, right? He says, Drishtair, what is it? He says, for a Kanishta, you respect him in the mind, Rupa Goswami says. What is the verse in the Nectar of Instruction? I forget. For a Madhyamadhikari, you pay obeisance. If Uttamadhikari, you pay dandavats and serve. But the point of respect is not questioned at all. You respect everybody. But the way you respect is for their benefit and for your benefit also. That's what Rupa Goswami says. So that we have to cultivate. I think we should definitely stop now before I get wrapped on my knuckles. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatrubhyasya kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.